Welcome, welcome, welcome to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you've had a good weekend. Let's talk about weight divisions, because over the weekend we saw a couple of fights actually that brought the issue of weight divisions to the fore. There's the obvious Terence Crawford versus Madrimov fight. I'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, let's look at David Morel, who is someone I rated and still rate very, very highly as a fighter. He's only had 11 fights with 9 KOs. He was looking like an absolute $1 million at 168. And along with David Benavidez, he was ducked by Canelo Alvarez. Now, both of these fighters, the two Davids, Benavidez and Morel, moved up to 175 because they just couldn't get the Canelo fight. Canelo didn't want to know. Okay, you don't want to know, you don't want to know. So you got to carve out your own legacy. But Canelo, at the time, had all the belts. I think the IBF belt is now vacant, so Canelo is no longer undisputed. But Morel and Benavidez said, no, let's move to 175, see what happens. Well, with Benavidez, he fought Alexander Vosdik, and, he won, but down the stretch, he was given some quite serious problems by Vosdik. He was essentially outboxed. I'm almost tempted to say sort of old maned out of it. And Benavidez won the fight, no doubt. But there were some sort of chinks in the armour that were prevalent or became apparent that hadn't been visible at 168. Now, I don't think you can dismiss the weight here, because although Vosdik was a very good fighter, is a very good fighter, he's past his best. I mean, he's 36 years old. For the first 6 rounds, he wasn't really in it. Was taking, not a battering, but was clearly second best. And it was only when he used all that experience and all that durability and skill that he managed to get back into the fight. But it was too late. And there was a vacant belt on the line there, which Benavidez subsequently picked up. Now, over the weekend, we had David Morel against Radovic Kaladzic, and it was a very similar story, because Morel began extremely well, showing all those slick moves, looking absolutely, fluid, beautiful boxing. But Kaladzic, I always have trouble pronouncing his name, Kaladzic, he hung tough, and he was able to absorb the punishment, and he crept back into it to the point where he was actually giving Morel a lot of problems. And again, I can't dismiss the idea that the fact that this is an established 175-pound fighter that Morel is fighting. And for Morel and Benavidez to move into a weight division so quickly and take on, very good light heavyweights for vacant belts, there was always going to be some sort of revelation here. Some things that were previously hidden are going to come to the fore, like I say. And don't forget, now that both these guys have got belts, they're going to have to defend them against other, presumably world-class contenders. I know that rankings in these ruling bodies can be a bit peculiar at times, but nevertheless, they both got belts. They're both, 175-pound world champions. So there's no going back now unless you want to drop down to 168 again. And of course, this raises the issue of the old cliche. There are weight divisions for a reason. Now, let's go over to Bud Crawford now, who fought Madrimov at 154. This was Crawford's first fight at 154. We all know he's a brilliant technician, brilliant fighter. But Madrimov gave him a very, very good fight. And I thought this was close. I thought Bud won it. I think I had it 115, 113. But this was it the toughest fight of Bud's career? It's certainly the toughest one for many, many years. And again, people shouldn't be that surprised, because Madrimov, there was no hint of him ever being some kind of overrated mug. I mean, you could say he was untested because he'd only had 10 fights previously. But against Kurbanov, when he won the vacant belt, he was looking good. It was a very good performance. He'd showed a lot. Okay, he's not on Bud's level technically, but then neither are many other people. Maybe 2 or 3 people in the world are. Do you know what I mean? So I found the whole thing very, very curious that people were kind of surprised that this wasn't a reasonably competitive fight, or a competitive fight. Now, that brings us to the subject of Terence Crawford fighting Canelo. I have always thought that this is a ludicrous decision, a pure cash grab. Okay. Bud Crawford is a brilliant fighter, and Canelo is a brilliant fighter. You can argue that both are now sort of not past it, but on the down. They're coming down the hill now. They've reached the summit, and now they're coming down the hill. But they're still relatively near the top. But Canelo has been a long-established, undisputed 168-pound fighter, and Bud's just come up from 147. So whose idiotic idea was it, mentioning no names, Turkey Allah Sheikh, to put them in the same ring together? I think it's a stupid matchup. I thought it was a stupid matchup when they were talking about throwing Conor Benn, a welterweight, in with Chris Eubank Jr., who previously has fought at super middleweight, and he actually fought for a world title at super middleweight. He lost it, but that's not the point. These stupid matchups, and I know what people are going to say. I know what the old schoolers are going to say, and I consider myself to be an old schooler. Well, Carmen Basilio jumped up, and all sorts of Ray Robinson was really just a light middleweight when he dominated at middleweight, and blah blah blah. Yeah, I get all that stuff. People jump up, and if you go way 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 back, you've got people like Sam Langford, who was really just a super middleweight fighting heavyweights. I get all that stuff. If you want to go back 100 years, but this is the modern game, and it's a very, very different dynamic. And to say that Crawford is going to jump up and fight Canelo at 168, I think it's a ridiculous matchup. And if Canelo knocks out Crawford, what, is that some kind of achievement? I mean, if Crawford was to outpoint Canelo, yeah, it would be an immense achievement, but I don't see it happening. I think it's an incredibly dangerous, not just difficult, but dangerous fight for Crawford. And I think the Madrimov fight, it shows, again, it's another illustration of why we have weight divisions for a reason. We're talking about unfair advantages, and God knows we've talked about unfair advantages, what with all this stuff going on in the Olympics, enough recently. But everybody has a ceiling, Naoya Inoue is a brilliant, brilliant fighter. You know what I mean? You put him in with a light welterweight, put him in with, I don't know, put him in with, who should we pick? Well, pick any leading light welterweight that you want. I'll let you choose. Do you think that your choice would beat Naoya Inoue? Okay, number one. Number two, do you think that your choice of light welterweight is pound for pound a better fighter than Naoya Inoue? Those two questions illustrate this point. All right. So I'm really not impressed with this whole idea of weight hopping. I think it's a stupid endeavor. If you outgrow a division, that's fine. If you move up to a division and you allow your body to, settle into it, that's fine too. But you've got to do that. All this jumping up and down is silliness and rubbish. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Give me yours below. Let me know what you think. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you don't. That's absolutely fine if you don't. Give me your reasons why you don't agree with me. And thank you very much. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the like button as well. Spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Let's build the channel up and enjoy your week ahead. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.